I'm Hannah, 32 years old, and I never thought my identical twin sister and I would end up as strangers after achieving our shared dream of becoming doctors. We graduated from medical school together, supported each other through every exam and rotation. Then I discovered something unforgivable. My parents had secretly paid off Sophia's $250,000 in student loans while telling me I needed to handle my debt alone. Their explanation: "She deserves it more, honey." Let me tell you what happened next. Before I continue, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Please hit that like and subscribe button and leave a comment sharing your hometown so I can get to know you better. Growing up in suburban Boston with my fraternal twin Sophia was like having a built-in best friend from birth. We shared everything: toys, clothes, secrets, and dreams. Our bedroom was split down the middle, mine filled with books and science posters, hers decorated with dance trophies and photos of friends. Despite being twins, anyone could tell us apart instantly. I was the quieter one, with straight brown hair and glasses, always with my nose in a book, while Sophia had natural blonde curls that framed her face perfectly, and an infectious laugh that drew people to her like magnets. Our father, James, was a successful real estate developer who worked long hours and expected nothing but excellence from his daughters. Mom, Patricia, ran her own interior design business, transforming wealthy clients' homes while maintaining our picture-perfect house. From the outside, we looked like the ideal American family: successful parents, talented daughters, and a beautiful colonial home with a perfectly manicured lawn. I first noticed my interest in medicine when I was 10 years old. Our grandfather had a massive heart attack, and we spent weeks visiting him in the hospital. While Sophia would get bored and ask to visit the gift shop, I was fascinated by the doctors making their rounds, the beeping machines, and the nurses efficiently moving between rooms. I would ask endless questions about treatments and medications, absorbing every detail. "You ask more questions than some of my medical students," Dr. Lawson told me one day with a kind smile. That comment planted a seed that would grow into my life's passion. Sophia initially had no interest in medicine, preferring her dance classes and social activities. But one evening, after visiting Grandpa, she announced at dinner that she wanted to be a doctor too. Our parents beamed with pride, Dad raising his glass in a toast to our future doctors. "That's wonderful, Sophia. With your people skills, you'll make an excellent physician," Mom exclaimed, her eyes shining with pride. I noticed she didn't mention my earlier interest, but I brushed it aside, excited to share this dream with my sister. After that, we would play doctor together, using our stuffed animals as patients. I would meticulously research real conditions and treatments, creating detailed medical charts, while Sophia focused on comforting the patients and creating elaborate backstories for them. We complemented each other perfectly and made a childhood pact to become doctors together. As we moved through school, subtle differences in how our parents treated us became more noticeable. For our 16th birthday, Sophia received a brand new laptop for schoolwork, while I got a refurbished model. When we both made the honor roll, Sophia's achievement was celebrated with dinner at our favorite restaurant, while mine was acknowledged with a simple, "Good job, that's what we expect from you." In high school, our paths diverged further. I was valedictorian president of the science club and focused intensely on maintaining my perfect GPA. Sophia was homecoming queen captain of the cheerleading squad and had a vast social network despite her decent but not outstanding grades. Teachers loved both of us, me for my academic contributions, her for her charisma and enthusiasm. When college acceptance letters arrived, I received a full academic scholarship to State University, while Sophia was accepted to a more prestigious private university, but without financial aid. I still remember the conversation at dinner that night. "Hannah, congratulations on your scholarship. That's very practical," Dad said briefly before turning to Sophia. "And don't worry about tuition at Westmore, Princess. We've been saving for your education since you were born. You focus on your studies and enjoying the college experience." I swallowed my questions about whether they had been saving for my education too. After all, I had earned a scholarship through hard work. That should be celebrated, right? I told myself this was fair, not realizing it was just the beginning of a pattern that would shape our futures in ways I couldn't imagine. College separated us physically for the first time in our lives. I moved into a cramped dorm room at State University, while Sophia settled into a spacious apartment near Westmore University's campus, fully furnished by our parents as a going-away gift. During our weekly family video calls, Sophia would show off her new space, the view of the campus, and talk about the friends she was making. I would share news about my classes and research opportunities, which often seemed to bore everyone except Dad, who would occasionally ask practical questions about my grades. To supplement my scholarship, which covered tuition, but not living expenses, I worked 20 hours a week at the campus library and as a research assistant in the biology department. My schedule was packed from dawn until late evening, dividing my time between classes work and studying. Meanwhile, Sophia's Instagram showed a very different college experience. Sorority events, weekend trips with friends, and elaborate study sessions at trendy coffee shops, where more socializing than studying seemed to happen. "Don't you ever have fun, Hannah?" Sophia asked during one of our increasingly rare sister calls. "College is about more than just classes, you know." "Some of us have to work," I replied, immediately regretting the edge in my voice. "I mean, I enjoy my jobs. The research position will look great on my med school applications." "Mom and Dad offered to help you too, didn't they?" she asked, sounding genuinely confused. "They hadn't, but I didn't want to create family tension. I prefer to be independent," I said instead, the first of many lies I would tell to preserve the peace and my dignity. During sophomore year, I started dating Marcus, an engineering student who shared my work ethic and ambition. Sophia cycled through several boyfriends, each one seemingly wealthier and more connected than the last. When we came home for Christmas that year, she brought Taylor, the son of a hospital administrator. Dinner conversation revolved around his father's connections and how they might help with future residency placements. "Networking is just as important as grades in medicine," Mom remarked pointedly, glancing at me as I silently ate my turkey. By junior year, our lives had diverged dramatically. I was published as a co-author on a research paper and working extra shifts to save for medical school applications. Sophia had changed her major twice before settling back on pre-med, her grades decent but not exceptional. When application season for medical school arrived, I applied to 15 schools, carefully saving for each application fee and requesting fee waivers where possible. Sophia applied to 20 schools and casually mentioned during Thanksgiving that our parents had hired a medical school admissions consultant to help her put her best foot forward. The consultant cost $12,000, more than I had managed to save all through college. When I expressed surprise at the expense, Dad quickly changed the subject to the turkey's doneness. The acceptances and rejections rolled in during spring of senior year. I was accepted to 7 schools, including 2 top 10 programs. Sophia was waitlisted at several and accepted at 3, including Maryland Medical Center, one of my acceptances. When she announced she would be attending MMC, my feelings were mixed. Part of me was excited to reconnect with my twin, but another part worried about falling back into old family dynamics. "We'll be doctor twins just like we always planned," she squealed over the phone, sounding like the little girl I'd made that childhood pact with. I committed to MMC as well, partly from sentimentality, and partly because they offered the best financial aid package, though it would still leave me with significant loans. As I calculated tuition costs and living expenses totaling my expected debt to be well over $200,000, I wondered how Sophia was approaching this financial challenge. During one call, I cautiously asked about her plans for medical school funding. "Oh, I'm taking out loans like everyone else," she said vaguely. "Dad helped me figure out the forms. Don't worry about it. We'll be poor medical students together." I believed her. That was my first big mistake. The day we both received our white coats was one of the proudest moments of my life. Standing next to Sophia on that stage, reciting the Hippocratic Oath in unison, felt like the fulfillment of our childhood dream. Mom and Dad sat in the audience, Dad recording the entire ceremony, while Mom dabbed tears with a monogrammed handkerchief. For that one perfect moment, everything felt right. Reality set in quickly as first-year medical school coursework began. The pace was grueling with endless lectures, lab work, and exams that tested not just knowledge but endurance. I established a rigorous study schedule incorporating shifts at the university hospital cafeteria to minimize additional loans. My tiny studio apartment was a 15-minute walk from campus, furnished with second-hand items and adorned with exactly one plant that somehow survived my neglect. Sophia, meanwhile, moved into a luxury apartment building 5 minutes from campus, explaining that proximity would maximize her study time. Her place came fully furnished with brand new furniture, a state-of-the-art entertainment system, and a view of the city skyline. When I asked how she could afford it on student loans, she vaguely mentioned budgeting efficiently and quickly changed the subject. Our study styles remained as different as they had been in childhood. I joined a serious study group that met in the library until closing time, creating detailed notes and flashcards for every system and pathway. Sophia formed what she called a holistic study group that often seemed to involve expensive dinners out and study sessions that turned into wine nights. Yet somehow, she kept pace, academically performing just slightly below me on exams. "How are you managing all this?" I asked one night when she invited me over for dinner, gesturing to the new furniture and the bottle of wine that I knew cost more than my weekly grocery budget. "Just good financial planning," she said with a mysterious smile. "You should talk to Dad about money management sometime. He's been super helpful with my budget." I felt a twinge of hurt that Dad was apparently giving her financial advice while I struggled alone, but I pushed it aside. Our parents had always claimed to treat us equally, and I wanted to believe them. The differences became harder to ignore as the years progressed. While I spent my short breaks between semesters picking up extra hospital shifts to build my resume and earn money, Sophia took vacations to the Caribbean and Europe, posting enviable photos on social media. When I asked about these trips during a rare study session together, she casually mentioned credit card points and travel hacking, explanations that didn't quite add up but that I wasn't equipped to challenge. During our third year as we began clinical rotations, our different approaches to medicine became clear. I thrived in the academic aspects, earning top evaluations for medical knowledge and diagnostic reasoning. Sophia excelled in patient communication and team dynamics, winning over attending physicians with her charm and emotional intelligence. We were both good doctors in the making, just with different strengths. It was during a surgery rotation that I first noticed how our financial situations were affecting our career paths. An opportunity arose for an away rotation at a prestigious program in California, which would significantly boost residency applications. The cost was prohibitive for me: airfare, housing for a month, plus the application fee. I reluctantly declined, knowing it would set me back thousands of dollars I didn't have. A week later, Sophia announced she had been accepted to the exact same program. "It's an investment in my future," she said when I expressed surprise. "I'll just add it to my loans." That night, I called my loan servicer to check my balance and felt physically ill seeing the number $185,000 already with another year and a half to go. I knew medical education was expensive, but seeing that number made my future feel precarious. I created a detailed 15-year repayment plan, calculating that I would need to live frugally well into my attending physician years to manage the debt. As graduation approached, we both matched into good residency programs. Me in internal medicine at Boston Memorial, Sophia in dermatology at University Hospital in Chicago. Her specialty was more competitive and typically more lucrative, a fact that didn't bother me as much as the realization that I had limited my residency applications to programs with lower costs of living, while Sophia had applied broadly without financial constraints. At graduation, with our matching caps and gowns and fresh MD degrees, we hugged and promised to stay in touch despite the distance. My calculated student loan debt now stood at $275,000. When I casually asked Sophia about her loan total during the celebration dinner, she changed the subject so quickly I barely noticed. That should have been my second warning sign. As we packed up our apartments and prepared to start our separate residencies, I felt a strange mixture of pride, anxiety, and lingering questions about how Sophia had navigated medical school with such apparent financial ease. But I was eager to start the next chapter, focused on becoming the best doctor I could be, even if it meant years of financial sacrifice. Little did I know that Thanksgiving break during my second year of residency would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family and my place within it. The Thanksgiving of my second residency year started like any other holiday. I drove the 3 hours from Boston to my parents' suburban home, mentally preparing for the usual family dynamics. Dad asking about my career prospects, Mom commenting on my appearance, and Sophia being the center of attention with stories about her exciting life in Chicago. What I didn't prepare for was discovering the truth that would forever change my relationship with my family. I arrived early Thursday morning, hoping to help with dinner preparations and have some quiet time with Mom before everyone else arrived. The house was empty when I let myself in. Mom had left a note saying she'd gone to pick up last-minute groceries. I decided to use the printer in Dad's home office to print some research articles I needed to review before returning to work. As the printer warmed up, I noticed a folder on Dad's desk labeled Sophia, Loan Payments. My heart began to race as I opened it, telling myself there must be a reasonable explanation. Inside were dozens of bank statements and payment confirmations to National Education Loans, Sophia's loan servicer. The most recent statement showed a final payment of $63,000 with the notation, "Paid in full," stamped across it. My hands trembled as I flipped through the documents. Payment after payment, year after year, throughout our entire medical school education. Our parents had been making Sophia's loan payments all along, culminating in paying off her entire balance upon completion of her first year of residency. The total over the years came to nearly $250,000. I was still sitting there surrounded by the evidence when I heard the garage door open. I quickly put everything back and returned to the kitchen, my mind spinning and my chest tight with emotion. Throughout dinner preparations, I moved mechanically, chopping vegetables and setting the table while trying to process what I'd learned. When Sophia arrived with her new boyfriend, James, she was radiant in designer clothes, sporting a new haircut and expensive jewelry. Mom fussed over her, while Dad proudly introduced James to the neighbors who had stopped by. I waited until dinner was served when we were all seated around the table with glasses of wine in hand. Dad had just finished saying grace, thanking God for our successful careers and Sophia's financial responsibility in handling her education debt. "Speaking of financial responsibility," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "I found something interesting in Dad's office today. Would either of you like to explain why you paid off Sophia's medical school loans while leaving me drowning in debt?" The silence was immediate and suffocating. Mom's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Dad's face reddened. Sophia looked down at her plate. "Hannah," Mom finally said, "it's Thanksgiving. Let's not do this now." "When should we do it, Mom? After I've spent 15 years paying off loans that Sophia never had to worry about. After years of believing we were treated equally." Dad cleared his throat. "Your situation is different, Hannah. You've always been so capable, so independent." "And Sophia is that what you're saying?" "No," Mom interjected quickly. "Sophia just needed more help. Her career path is more demanding and she doesn't have your natural advantages." "My natural advantages?" I repeated incredulously. "You know what your mother means," Dad said. "You've always been the smart one. Things come easily to you." Nothing about medical school or $275,000 in debt comes easily to anyone, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. Sophia finally spoke up. It's not my fault they wanted to help me, Hannah. Not everyone can be perfect like you. Perfect? I worked through college and medical school. I limited my residency applications because of money. I live in an apartment the size of your bathroom because of my loan payments. Meanwhile, you took vacations and lived in luxury all while lying to my face about being in the same financial situation. We didn't want to hurt your feelings, Mom said softly. No, you just wanted to hurt my future, I replied. Then came the statement that would haunt me for months afterward. Mom reached across the table, patting my hand condescendingly, and said, She deserves it more, honey. Sophia has always had to work harder for what you achieve naturally. The room spun around me as those words sank in. In my parents' eyes, my hard work and sacrifice weren't signs of deserving help, but somehow proof that I didn't need it. My academic success had been weaponized against me, used as justification for blatant favoritism. I looked at Sophia, searching for any sign of discomfort or remorse. Instead, she nodded along with Mom's assessment. It's true, Hannah. You don't know how hard it is living in your shadow. Everyone always expected me to be as smart as you, as disciplined as you. Do you know what that feels like? Do you know what it feels like to realize your entire family has been lying to you, that they conspired behind your back to give you a financial burden your twin sister never had to carry? Dad attempted to rationalize it further. We've helped you too, Hannah. We paid for your application fees for medical school. That was $3,000. You gave Sophia $250,000. We're not obligated to pay for either of your educations, Mom said defensively. No, you're not. But you chose to pay for hers and not mine while lying about it to my face. That's the issue. The conversation devolved from there. Sophia accused me of being ungrateful for the opportunities I'd had. Dad claimed they had always intended to help me too someday when I really needed it. Mom eventually started crying, saying I was ruining the holiday with my jealousy. I sat through it all, a strange calm, replacing my initial shock as I realized that this wasn't a misunderstanding or a one-time decision. This was the culmination of a lifetime of subtle favoritism now laid bare in financial terms I couldn't ignore. When dessert was served, I quietly stood up. I need to go. I'm on call tomorrow, I lied. Hannah, don't be dramatic, Sophia said, rolling her eyes. Just because you're not the favorite for once doesn't mean you need to ruin Thanksgiving. Those words, not the favorite for once, confirmed everything. There had always been a favorite, and it had never been me. I drove back to Boston that night, tears blurring my vision as I replayed the last decade of my life, reinterpreting every memory through this new lens of understanding. The scholarship I'd been so proud of hadn't been an achievement, but a convenience for my parents, allowing them to focus their resources on Sophia. My independence wasn't admired, but exploited. When I reached my small apartment, I opened my laptop and looked at my loan statement, $275,842.19. The monthly payment was larger than my rent. While Sophia was debt-free and starting her life unencumbered, I would be paying for my education well into my 40s. That night, I cried myself to sleep, mourning not just the money, but the family I thought I had. The weeks following Thanksgiving passed in a blur of hospital shifts and sleepless nights. I moved through my residency responsibilities like a robot, examining patients and writing notes while my mind repeatedly returned to the betrayal I'd discovered. Several co-residents commented on my subdued demeanor, but I deflected with vague references to holiday stress. In December, I received multiple calls from my parents, which I let go to voicemail. Their messages ranged from defensive, "We don't appreciate your attitude at Thanksgiving," to placating, "We should discuss this as a family," to guilt-inducing, "Your mother is very upset about how you left things." Sophia texted once a brief message saying, "You're being childish. Call mom and dad." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I found myself in the office of Dr. Eleanor Martinez, a therapist recommended by one of my senior residents. During our first session, I broke down completely while explaining my situation. "I keep asking myself if I'm overreacting," I told her, twisting a tissue between my fingers. "Is $250,000 really worth ending my relationship with my family?" "That's a significant amount of money," Dr. Martinez acknowledged. "But I sense this isn't just about the money for you." She was right. As we continued our weekly sessions, I began to recognize patterns throughout my childhood and young adult life. The subtle ways my accomplishments had been diminished while Sophia's were celebrated, how my self-sufficiency had been used against me, the constant message that Sophia's needs were somehow more important than mine. "You're describing a family dynamic called golden child scapegoat," Dr. Martinez explained during our third session. "It's common in families with narcissistic tendencies where one child is idealized and another is held to impossible standards or undervalued." This framework helped me make sense of my experiences, but it also deepened my grief. I wasn't just mourning the loss of financial support, but the loss of the family I thought I had, one that valued all its members equally. In January, I received a text from my college friend Rachel, who had remained close with both Sophia and me over the years. "Did you know Sophia's having a debt-free celebration next month? Your parents are hosting it." My stomach twisted as Rachel sent me the electronic invitation she'd received. The invitation featured a photo of Sophia in her white coat with the caption, "Debt-free MD, join us in celebrating Sophia's financial freedom and bright future." The date was set for February 15th at my parents' home. The audacity was breathtaking. After our confrontation at Thanksgiving, they were publicly celebrating the very thing that had revealed their favoritism. I felt a new emotion rising alongside my hurt determination. That night, I created a spreadsheet. In one column, I listed my current financial situation, my remaining loan balance, monthly payments, and how these constraints affected my living situation and career choices. In another column, I calculated what my life would look like if I had received the same financial support as Sophia. The difference was stark and quantifiable. I also began reaching out to friends who had known us throughout our education, discreetly asking about their perceptions of how our parents treated us differently. The responses were eye-opening. "I always wondered how Sophia afforded that apartment in med school," said my former study group partner. "She once mentioned your dad handling her finances, but I assumed he was doing the same for you." "Remember when you couldn't come on that residency interview trip because of the cost?" another friend recalled. "Sophia went on the same trip the next week and stayed at the Ritz." Each conversation confirmed that the disparity had been noticeable to others, even when I had been in denial about it. During this period, I also reconnected with Alex, a physician I had met during a cardiology rotation. Our coffee meetings gradually evolved into dinners and eventually dating. When I finally shared my family situation with him, his response was validating in a way my family had never been. "That's not just unfair, Hannah. It's cruel," he said simply. "What are you going to do about it?" His question prompted me to move from grief to action. I began by consulting with a financial advisor who specialized in working with physicians with student debt. She helped me create an aggressive repayment plan that would allow me to become debt-free in 7 years instead of 15, though it would require significant sacrifices and additional income sources. I started moonlighting at an urgent care facility on my rare days off, putting every dollar of that income toward loan payments. I created a medical blog focusing on physician finances and burnout, which gradually gained a following and provided modest advertising revenue. I moved to an even smaller apartment to reduce expenses further. As February approached, I made a decision about the debt-free celebration. Initially, I planned to ignore it entirely, but something in me couldn't let this public celebration of inequity pass without response. I didn't want revenge. I wanted acknowledgement and accountability. I officially RSVP'd yes to the party and began preparing what I would say and do. This wasn't about creating drama. It was about standing in my truth for perhaps the first time in my life. I gathered financial documents, prepared a concise statement, and even practiced with Alex to ensure I could deliver my message calmly and clearly. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Alex asked after one rehearsal. "You could just move on, focus on your own path." "I've been doing that my whole life," I replied. "Always taking the high road, never making waves. Where has that gotten me? They need to hear this, even if it changes nothing." The night before the party, I received a text from Sophia. "Heard you're coming tomorrow. Try not to make it all about you for once." Her words only strengthened my resolve. This wasn't about me making it all about me. It was about finally being seen after a lifetime of being overlooked. With my evidence organized and my words prepared, I went to bed that night feeling nervous but resolute. Tomorrow would change my family dynamics forever. But in many ways, that change had already begun the moment I discovered those loan documents in my father's office. The day of Sophia's debt-free celebration arrived with unseasonable warmth for February in New England. I dressed carefully in a professional blue dress and subtle pearl earrings my grandmother had given me before she passed, the one family member who had always treated Sophia and me equally. I did my makeup with precision, wanting to project confidence and composure despite my inner turmoil. Alex offered to accompany me, but I declined. "This is something I need to do alone," I told him during our morning phone call. "But thank you for offering." "Call me the second it's over," he insisted. "I'll be waiting to hear how it goes." I arrived at my parents' house exactly 15 minutes after the party's start time, not wanting to be the first guest, but also not wanting to miss my opportunity. The driveway was already lined with luxury cars, and I could hear laughter and conversation as I approached the front door. Mom answered my knock, her surprise at seeing me evident despite my RSVP. "Hannah, you came." She leaned in for an awkward hug, which I returned stiffly. "We weren't sure you'd actually show up." "I said I would be here," I replied, simply handing her the bottle of wine I'd brought. Nothing expensive, but not cheap either. Just right for someone on a resident's salary with massive student debt. The living room was filled with about 30 people. Family friends, colleagues of my parents, several of Sophia's friends from medical school, and a few relatives. Dad stood near the fireplace, deep in conversation with Dr. Harrison, the chief of dermatology at University Hospital, and Sophia's department chair. Sophia herself was at the center of a group of admirers, looking radiant in an expensive white dress that probably cost more than my monthly loan payment. Mom guided me toward the food table, making small talk about the catering and the weather. I responded politely but briefly, scanning the room and noting who was present. I recognized several family friends who had known us since childhood, a few of my parents' business associates, and even my former pediatrician, Dr. Klein, who had inspired both Sophia and me with her stories about medicine. After filling a small plate with appetizers, I knew I wouldn't eat. I circulated through the room, exchanging pleasantries and deflecting questions about my absence from recent family gatherings. Several guests commented on how impressive it was that both James and Patricia's daughters became doctors, seemingly unaware of the drastically different paths we had taken to get there. About 45 minutes into the party, Dad clinked his glass for attention. The room quieted as he moved to stand beside Sophia, placing his arm around her shoulders with visible pride. "Thank you all for coming today to celebrate a momentous achievement," he began, his voice carrying through the room. "As many of you know, becoming a physician is not only challenging academically, but also financially. The average medical student graduates with over $200,000 in debt, a burden that can take decades to overcome." I felt my heart rate accelerate as he continued. Our Sophia has always been exceptional, not just in her compassionate care for patients, but in her financial responsibility. Through careful planning and disciplined budgeting, she has achieved what few young doctors manage: complete freedom from student debt just 1 year into her residency. Murmurs of admiration rippled through the crowd. Sophia beamed, playing the part of the financially savvy young professional perfectly. Patricia and I couldn't be prouder, Dad continued. Sophia's independence and responsibility set an example for young people everywhere. Please raise your glasses to Dr. Sophia Reynolds, debt-free and destined for greatness. Glasses were raised amid cheers and congratulations. I lifted mine mechanically, meeting Sophia's eyes across the room. She gave me a small, smug smile before turning to accept hugs from nearby guests. It was now or never. As the toast concluded and conversation began to resume, I moved to stand near my father glass, still in hand. I gently tapped it with a spoon, the clear, ringing sound cutting through the chatter. I'd like to say something too, I announced, my voice steadier than I expected. The room fell silent again, all eyes turning to me. My parents exchanged nervous glances while Sophia's smile faltered. For those who might not know me, I'm Hannah, Sophia's twin sister, and also a physician. I'm currently in my 2nd year of internal medicine residency at Boston Memorial. I paused, taking a breath. I want to elaborate on the remarkable achievement we're celebrating today. I reached into my purse and withdrew a single sheet of paper, a printout of my current loan statement. While Sophia stands before you debt-free, I currently owe $275,842.19 in student loans. The monthly payment is $3,200, more than my rent. The room had grown uncomfortably quiet. I continued, my voice clear and controlled. What my father didn't mention in his toast is how Sophia achieved this financial freedom. It wasn't through careful planning and disciplined budgeting. It was because our parents paid every dollar of her education expenses while telling me I needed to be independent. Dad stepped forward, his face flushed. Hannah, this isn't the time or place. When is the time, Dad? When you've invited dozens of people to celebrate the very inequality I discovered at Thanksgiving. When you're publicly praising Sophia for an achievement that was handed to her while I struggle. I turned to address the gathered guests. I discovered in November that my parents have been making Sophia's loan payments throughout medical school and recently paid off her remaining balance in full. They did this while knowing I was working extra shifts and limiting my career choices because of my loan burden. The expressions around the room ranged from shock to discomfort to curiosity. Dr. Klein, our old pediatrician, looked particularly disturbed. Her brow furrowed as she glanced between my parents and me. I'm not sharing this to embarrass anyone, I continued. I'm sharing it because I'm tired of pretending. Tired of the narrative that Sophia somehow earned or deserves more support than I do. Tired of having my independence and academic success used against me to justify favoritism. Mom stepped forward now, tears in her eyes. Hannah, you're misrepresenting the situation. We've always supported both of you. Equally, I challenged. Did you spend $250,000 on my education? Did you pay off my loans? Did you even offer? Her silence was answer enough. The truth is, I said, addressing the room again, there's nothing wrong with parents helping their children through education. That's a wonderful gift if they can afford it. What's wrong is doing it for one child while deliberately excluding the other, then lying about it for years. Sophia finally spoke up, her voice tight with anger. This is exactly why they helped me instead of you. You always have to make everything about yourself, about how you've been wronged. Maybe if you weren't so self-centered, they would have wanted to help you too. A murmur ran through the crowd at her harsh words. I saw several guests exchange glances, clearly uncomfortable with the naked hostility in her tone. Is that what you really think, Sophia? That I'm self-centered for, expecting to be treated equally to my twin sister, for expecting honesty from my family. Before she could answer, an unexpected voice joined the conversation. Mrs. Abernathy, our parents' oldest friend and neighbor, stepped forward. "James, Patricia, is what Hannah's saying true? Did you pay for Sophia's education, but not hers?" Dad's hesitation was damning. "It's complicated, Elaine. Each of our daughters had different needs." "They're twins, for heaven's sake," Mrs. Abernathy interrupted, clearly shocked. "How could their needs be so different that one deserves $250,000 more than the other?" Other guests began to murmur among themselves. I could see the realization dawning on faces around the room. This wasn't just a family squabble, but a revelation of profound inequality. Dr. Harrison, who had been quietly observing, addressed my father. "James, when you told me about Sophia's financial achievement, you gave me the impression she had accomplished this through her own efforts. I've been considering her for our department's financial literacy committee based on that understanding." Sophia's face paled as her department chair continued. "If I had known the truth, I would have had very different thoughts about her suitability for that role." My father attempted damage control. "Now let's not blow this out of proportion. Family financial matters are private." "Not when you throw a party specifically celebrating those financial matters," I interjected. "Not when you've misrepresented the situation to everyone, including Sophia's professional colleagues." The party atmosphere had completely dissolved. Some guests were gathering their coats. Others were speaking in hushed tones, and a few were openly staring at my parents with disapproval. I hadn't come to destroy the party, but I couldn't deny feeling a certain vindication seeing the truth finally acknowledged. Still, this wasn't about revenge. I placed my glass down on a nearby table and retrieved my purse. "I didn't come here to create a scene," I said, my voice softer now. "I came because I needed the truth to be known, not just for me, but for all of you who have been part of our lives. I've spent years believing I wasn't enough, not successful enough, not charming enough, not worthy enough of the same support my sister received. I won't live with that lie anymore." I turned to leave, but stopped to address my sister one last time. "Congratulations on being debt-free, Sophia. It truly is a gift to start your career without that burden. I just wish you could acknowledge that it was a gift, not something you earned." As I walked toward the door, Dr. Klein stepped forward and touched my arm gently. "Hannah, I've watched you grow from a curious little girl into an exceptional physician. Don't let anyone diminish what you've accomplished on your own merit." Her words brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered before continuing to the door. Outside, the February air felt cleansing against my flushed skin. I walked to my car with my head held high, feeling simultaneously drained and liberated. The party behind me continued to dissolve, voices raised in argument drifting through the open door as guests made early departures. As I drove away from my childhood home, I realized something profound had shifted within me. For the first time, I had stood up for my worth without apology or compromise. Whatever happened next with my family, I would face it as a woman who knew her own value, debt and all. 1 year after the confrontation at Sophia's debt-free celebration, my life had transformed in ways I couldn't have imagined. I stood in my new apartment, still modest by most standards, but significantly nicer than my previous place, looking out at the Boston skyline as dawn broke over the city. In a few hours, I would head to the hospital for my first day as chief resident, a position I had earned through dedication and clinical excellence. The months following the party had been challenging, but ultimately healing. News of what happened spread quickly through our extended family and social circle. My parents attempted damage control, telling anyone who would listen that I had misunderstood their intentions and exaggerated the situation. Few believed them, especially after several party guests confirmed my account of events. 3 weeks after this confrontation, I received an unexpected letter from my Aunt Catherine, my father's sister, who had always kept a polite distance from family drama. The envelope contained a check for $50,000 and a brief note. "Hannah, I've always admired your independence and integrity. What your parents did was wrong. I can't make it entirely right, but I can help. This comes with no strings attached. Just my way of acknowledging your hard work and saying I'm sorry for not seeing what was happening sooner." I cried when I read her words, not because of the money, though it was certainly helpful, but because someone in my family had finally validated my feelings. After careful consideration, I accepted her gift, using it to make a substantial payment toward my loans and reduce my monthly burden. My relationship with my immediate family remained complicated. Mom called periodically, alternating between defensive justifications and tearful pleas to move past this for the sake of the family. Dad sent stiff emails about practical matters, never directly addressing what had happened. Sophia and I hadn't spoken at all since the party, though I occasionally saw updates about her life through mutual friends' social media posts. The most surprising development came from Dr. Harrison Sophia's department chair. He contacted me about 2 months after the party, inviting me to lunch, when he was in Boston for a conference. "I want you to know that your honesty that day made an impression on me," he said as we sat in a quiet corner of a restaurant near the hospital. "It's rare to see someone stand up for themselves with such dignity in a difficult situation." He proceeded to tell me that he had created a new initiative at University Hospital, a loan forgiveness program for residents who demonstrated both clinical excellence and financial need. While he couldn't discuss Sophia's standing in her program due to confidentiality, he made it clear that my sister's misrepresentation of her financial situation had not been without professional consequences. "We're looking to expand the program to partner hospitals," he added. "Boston Memorial is on our list. You should apply when the announcement goes public next month." I did apply, and to my amazement, was selected as one of the first recipients. The program would match my loan payments dollar for dollar during my remaining residency years, effectively cutting my repayment time in half. For the first time, I could see financial freedom on the horizon. My medical blog about physician finances had grown significantly, attracting thousands of followers and generating enough advertising revenue to make additional loan payments. I began receiving invitations to speak at medical schools about financial literacy, using my own experience as both a cautionary tale and an empowerment story. On the personal front, my relationship with Alex deepened. He had been my rock throughout the fallout from the confrontation, never judging my emotions, but always encouraging me to make decisions based on what would bring healing rather than further pain. "I'm proud of you," he told me one evening as we walked along the Charles River. "Not just for standing up to your family, but for how you've handled everything since. You could have become bitter, but instead, you've created something positive out of it." His words resonated with me. The pain of my family's betrayal hadn't disappeared, but it no longer defined me. I had channeled that hurt into creating resources for other medical students and residents facing financial challenges, ensuring they wouldn't feel as alone as I had. Perhaps the most profound change was internal. I no longer measured my worth against Sophia's, no longer questioned whether I deserved the same opportunities and support. I had built a community of friends and colleagues who valued me for exactly who I was: dedicated, compassionate, and resilient. In April, I received an unexpected email from Rachel, my college friend, who had maintained relationships with both Sophia and me. "Sophia's getting married in June. She hasn't sent you an invitation, but I thought you should know. They're registering for gifts at places where everything costs a fortune, of course. Thought you might appreciate the irony." I did smile at the irony, but felt no urge to comment or criticize. Sophia's choices were her own, just as mine were mine. If expensive gifts and lavish displays made her happy, so be it. I had found contentment in different values. As I prepared for my first day as chief resident, I reflected on the lessons of the past year. I had learned that family isn't always defined by blood, that standing in your truth can be painful but necessary, and that sometimes the greatest gift is recognizing your own worth when others fail to do so. I had also started a small scholarship fund for medical students facing financial hardship. It wasn't much yet, just $5,000 annually, but it represented my commitment to breaking the cycle of inequality and supporting those who, like me, had to forge their path without family financial support. The most unexpected lesson came from a conversation with a first-year resident I was mentoring. When I shared a sanitized version of my experience with student debt, she looked at me with admiration. "It's amazing that you did it all on your own," she said. "I don't know if I could have managed without my parents' help." "The thing is," I replied, surprising myself with the realization as I spoke, "I'm actually grateful for the path I took, as difficult as it was. Everything I have, I truly earned." There's a certain freedom in that knowledge that no one can take away. And it was true. While I wouldn't wish my family's betrayal on anyone, the strength and independence I had developed through that adversity had shaped me into someone I was proud to be. My phone buzzed with a text from Alex. "Good luck today, Chief. Dinner tonight to celebrate." I smiled as I replied with a yes. Later, I would stand before a room of residents as their leader, guiding them through the challenges of medical training. I would do so not as someone defined by family trauma or financial struggles, but as Dr. Hannah Reynolds, physician educator and woman who had discovered her own worth. The journey ahead still included challenges. My loans weren't fully paid off yet. My family relationships remained fractured, and the medical profession itself came with daily stresses and demands. But I faced these challenges standing firmly in my truth, surrounded by people who saw and valued me for exactly who I was. As I gathered my white coat and stethoscope preparing to leave for the hospital, I thought of all the patients I would help throughout my career, all the residents I would mentor, all the students I might inspire. My parents had been wrong. I didn't deserve less support because I was capable. I deserved to be celebrated precisely because of what I could achieve with that capability. Sometimes the most powerful response to inequality isn't resentment but resilience. Sometimes the best revenge isn't confrontation but creation, building something meaningful from the ashes of disappointment. And sometimes the most important family is the one you choose, the community you build around values of honesty, support, and mutual respect. Have you ever experienced favoritism in your family? How did you handle it? I hope my story has shown that standing up for yourself with dignity is always worth it, even when it's difficult. Please like and subscribe if this resonated with you, and share your own experiences in the comments. Remember that your worth is never determined by someone else's failure to see it. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you strength in whatever challenges you're facing in your own life.